strong word from reliable reporters in New York that Mike Sullivan is on the cusp of signing a game-changing for an NHL coach contract to take over the Rangers. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. I'm not going to make a habit of tracking every little thing that Sullivan does now that he's no longer in Pittsburgh. That's not the way I've handled any beat, even when there's insanely intensive interest in such a person. For example, Marc-Andre Fleury, whose NHL career formally ended, by the way, last night with the Wild's loss to the Golden Knights in Game 6. Even then, I didn't go, chasing Fleury and this and that. You're in Pittsburgh, you're going to get covered. You're not, and in all likelihood, the people who do cover hockey in Pittsburgh are going to pay a lot more attention to the people who are in Pittsburgh. But I bring up Sullivan and this scenario that's unfolding at Madison Square Garden for a real reason. My friends, the Rangers are going nowhere. And the only people in the entire hockey world who are unaware of that are the Rangers themselves, are the people running MSG, are the people who just handed Chris Drury this crazy long contract, are the people who think they can make something out of a roster that right before our eyes fell apart, like totally fell apart this past season. Some of that was out of sight, out of mind because of when the Penguins faced the Rangers. You got to see at least a little bit of it later on with the Penguins' victory up there by a 3-2 count. That was on February 7th. It was the second to last game before the Four Nations break. I covered that one up at the Garden. The score wasn't indicative at all of how well the Penguins played and how flat the Rangers were. But more to the point, there isn't exactly some budding future there. They don't have the next wave of players coming, and they don't have anywhere near enough in the area of current players. As currently constituted, this team has Artemi Panarin, at least unless those recent sexual assault charges against him prove to have merit. They've got JT Miller, Mika Zibanejad, Vince Trocheck up front. Alexis Lafreniere, I'm not sure he's ever going to be more than what he is now for a number one overall pick. And that's not a knock. He's just developing into who and what he's destined to be, but at least he was a little on the younger side. Adam Fox hasn't been at his Norris Trophy best, but he's still a very good NHL defenseman. Keandre Miller can be that. And then they've got Igor Shesterkin locked up for all eternity, 8 years and $92 million. That's a big chunk of your cap for the better part of the next decade, so that this past season, he'd finish with a .905 save percentage and 34 losses against his 27 wins. But the one thing you can always take to the bank when it comes to the Rangers is that they're always going to see themselves as being right in it. They've never left non-salary cap mode. No matter how often their counterparts across the river, the Devils, will show them that there's a way to work within the NHL system to succeed, to get into the playoffs and do other good things, they don't ever get there. They're still fighting for the back page of the New York Post as if it's 1975. So what would Sullivan get out of this deal? Well, the first thing is a whole hell of a lot of money. And the numbers that are being thrown around in Manhattan right now is that he would end up somewhere in the range of $8 million per year. Okay, great. Good for him. But from the hockey standpoint, where's that team going? Their AHL affiliate In Hartford, the Wolfpack just finished next to last in the same Atlantic Division that the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins are in. They won 30 games. They lost 42. The Rangers are about to give up a first-round pick to the Penguins either this year or next as part of the Marcus Pettersson trade. And I'm going to repeat that even if, as expected, they let Chris Kreider walk, they don't have much in the way of cap space, in large part because of what they're paying Igor. But, let's have enough respect for Sullivan here to put forth that it wouldn't just be about the money. Let's say that he would embrace the opportunity, in part because he knows that the Rangers are always going to have that, oh my God, we have to win right now philosophy. Even when they appeared to abandon that just slightly, when they were able to draft Lafreniere and Capo Caco and bring up Fox and look like they had this dynamic young group that was going to be right there with what the Devils were doing, because the Devils were adding a lot of players like that too, the Jack Hughes, notably. Devils stayed the course. Devils just kept operating within that same framework. But this way, Sullivan can coach the way he wants to coach. He can play who he wants to play. And this just has kind of a lousy taste, doesn't it? And not just because it's, the Rangers. I will say this, though. I've said it at the time that the move was made. If Kyle Dubas correctly sniffed out that Sullivan wasn't going to be all in, and I mean all the way in, with what it was that the Penguins feel, and I feel fairly so, they need to do over the next couple of seasons at least, then he wasn't going to be the right guy here. If Sullivan signs with the Rangers, that's a strong validation of that initial sniff test. When we come back, J1Q. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Today's J1Q comes from Ashkan, who asks, DK, no one's ever going to replace Mario Lemieux, but Sidney Crosby has obviously accomplished a ton. How does the city view one vis-a-vis another? Ashkan, I always feel like I'm pretty well equipped for the Mario questions and Mario comparables because I just shoot them down like instantly. As soon as somebody even brings up Mario and it sounds like it's about to be a comparison point, I just, And I feel like the city is there too. There's only one 66. There's only one greatest athlete that we've ever had. There's only one Mario. However, and I swear, I'm not sure I've ever thought of it quite this way until you poked my brain here. But when you say, how does the city view one vis-a-vis another? My answer to you is that the city doesn't do that. Like, if you think about, and I hear these things peripherally, it seems like in the NBA, everyone wants to compare every great player to some other great player, whether it's a current great player or someone from 20, 30, even 40 or 50 years ago. It's not enough to just say Nikola Jokic is the best basketball player in the world, which he is, and I'm only saying that partially because his family hails from about 4 miles up the road from where my family hails in the Vojvodina region of Serbia. It's always got to be, how is Jokic against LeBron? How is LeBron against Michael? How is Michael against Kobe? How is Bird and Magic and Wilt and Pistol Pete? In general, you don't hear as much of that in hockey, and maybe that's because Wayne Gretzky's held the records for so long, at least until Alexander Ovechkin took one of them from him. Maybe it's because the eras have been so different in hockey, where you've had a lot of scoring at times, you've had a lot of defense at other times. But in this case specifically, the same way that I was able to say to you just now that there's only one Mario, there's only one Sid. There's only one player / person / leader / citizen / amazingly good human that fits all of Sid's categories, and they're distinct categories. Yes, they both played center for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Yes, they both won Stanley Cups. Yes, they were both captains. And that's really it. If I ever sound a little extra defensive when it comes to Mario, it's because that's further into the past. I almost feel like I have to speak on the past's behalf for those who are younger and weren't privileged to see Mario play. You can go ahead and put, your YouTube highlights, the top 10 Mario goals of all time, and you'll be blown away, and you still won't have a millifraction of the understanding of his greatness. But you know who else that's true of? Yeah. But I think the most accurate and at the same time, the most heartwarming answer that I can give you is I don't hear Pittsburghers do this. I don't hear a barroom debate. And maybe that's just because we set it into our brains a long, long time ago that no one ever can be 66. But we don't bother with it. And that's because they're both held on such a high level that it feels borderline disrespectful. For me right now, just these 4 minutes of this segment feel that way. Nonetheless, I'm glad you asked. I'm glad and grateful for everyone who tunes in to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll be back with another one of these on Monday.